Peace and welcome, welcome, welcome. Just going to give it a couple of moments. It usually takes a little bit of time for notifications to go out. Wanted to share a gift that I received today. More on sacred geometry and mandalas. And of course, this one, as you can see, is Buddhist mandalas. So just going to give it a moment. I know this is in the middle of a Saturday afternoon. Welcome, Christina. I'm just on today just for a short while to share. I am doing well, had a good day. Went to Barnes & Noble's earlier, Barnes & Noble earlier this morning with a friend, and was gifted this awesome the Buddhist Mandala pocket coloring book, although I'm not really sure how this is going to fit in someone's pocket. This looks to be about, what would I say? I think this is about 7.5 inches, 7 inches wide, long, whatever, it's a square. So anyway, I wanted to share that book. Awesome. Are you having a good weekend? I know it's only Saturday, but a friend invited me to come over for lamb. How was your day, Christina? Let's see. Okay, so before we get started, I wanted to do a little reading from Quan Yin. I love this book, all the different aspects of Quan Yin, accessing the power of the divine feminine. And here we go. So we're going to look at Quan Yin of the Seashells. And thank you for being here, Christina, and everyone else. And please let me know if the music, trying to figure out what is the right level for the ambient music in the background. And so what I'm going to do is I want to do this little reading on Quan Yin, and then I'm going to share the 2 books that I have to show you, and I'm going to go by a friend's house to have some lamb stew, and then hopefully later this evening I'm going to do a YouTube live on my copper earrings to show everyone my copper earrings that are on sale. I need to clear out my current inventory. They're hand hammered copper earrings that I made. And I want to clear out this inventory, and I have a lot of new ones that will be ready for sale soon. So anyway, so this is Quan Yin of the Seashell. And the key word is realization, insight. Quan Yin sits before an open shell in which she has been hiding. Her right hand is held in the mudra of unity. You can see that right hand. In this form, Quan Yin watches over sentient beings who are in danger of being harmed by another. So intent is she upon the task that she may even physically manifest as a figurine in order to teach people to be more compassionate. She calls upon us to refrain from exploiting others and steps from seclusion into the light when we engage in thoughtless or selfish behavior. A Chinese legend tells of a Tang Dynasty emperor whose favorite dish was mussels. He ate large quantities of them. Diving for mussels was dangerous, and in trying to bring him his delicacy, some people even paid with their lives. Once, when the emperor was eating mussels, he found a very large one, which he greedily opened. To his great surprise, it contained a tiny statue of Quan Yin. He bowed deeply before her, burned incense, and had a temple erected for her. From that day on, he no longer craved mussels. And the contemplation invoke Quan Yin of the Seashell when you want to open the muscle, that's Mussel, the muscle of realization, and break your hard shell of unconsciousness or inconsiderate action. In this way, your love and compassion can manifest. So that was pretty interesting. And just sharing that contemplation, you can, in everyday life, we always walk a fine line of whether we're acting in compassion or we're acting, brazenly or very brash. I do believe that there are some times where either we might need a jolt or someone else needs a jolt. And sometimes the words that you might have to share with the other person, they might find them hurtful at first. So some people would say, well, maybe you shouldn't say those words. And then some people would say, well, sometimes you need a catalyst, you need an impetus, you need that lightning bolt to strike, to either get your point across or the word across or whatever it is. I think probably that's something that, we all each individually have to meditate on and make sure that whatever it is that we're delivering is in a place of love and compassion. And sometimes love doesn't necessarily always feel good. It's not always roses and, pink colored lenses. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it does. But anyway, okay. So let me look at the chat room. I think, let's see. Oh, okay. So you've been doing a lot of reading and some writing, and a lot of reading affirmations. You've been studying a lot on Quan Yin. Awesome. Let's see. I've heard of stories of people having experiences with Quan Yin appearing to them. I think it probably just depends upon a person's culture, as to how spirit manifests to them in divine form. Some people say that Jesus appears to them. Some people say that Mother Mary appears to them. I think it really doesn't matter what form, that appears. I just believe that it's all part of the process and spirit manifesting to us in a way that we can relate. Oh, no worries. Okay. So that was Quan Yin accessing the power of divine feminine. Oh, and since I am sharing a little bit of Quan Yin, of course, today, I want to show three other books that I have on Quan Yin that you might be interested in. So this one is a really tiny print, and this one is called Quan Yin, Divine Giver of Compassion. This is by Manuela Dunn Maschetti. So this book is a beautiful, it's like lots of, gosh, my hands look ginormous in this camera. Lots of beautiful artwork. So this is Quan Yin, or Kanan, as known in the Japanese. I'll share something very interesting. When I was a little girl, I wasn't raised in any particular religion, but my grandparents, they were the typical 50s parents, and in the 70s, they were upper middle class, and they played bridge, and they had their nice split level rancher, and had their cocktail parties and all of that. And my grandmother, to the one side of this staircase, it was like 4 or 5 steps that led up to where the bedrooms were. She had, I think there were some real plants in there, maybe a couple of fake plants right by this big window. And she had this beautiful Asian statue. And I love this. It was a statue of a woman. And I love this statue. And I used to go and sit and stare at this statue and talk to this statue. I was that kind of child. And it wasn't until I became grown. It wasn't until I started studying Buddhism and became ordained as a Buddhist minister that I realized that this statue was actually a statue, a form of Quan Yin. So, yeah, that was really cool. I'm really trying to be able to acquire that statue. So anyway, this is a really nice little book if you're interested in learning more about Quan Yin. It says Quan Yin embodies the divine feminine and exquisite essence, whose chief attribute is pure, unwavering compassion. She is unique in the heavenly hierarchy in being as free as a Buddha from pride or vengefulness, and is ever reluctant to punish even those who might deserve it. In her infinite compassion, Quan Yin protects I lost my space. Quan Yin protects all good people and grants all positive wishes. As the compassionate one, Quan Yin is deeply engaged in the day-to-day world of men and women. So this is all these different statues and images of Quan Yin. It's a very beautiful book. And this is actually a pocket-sized book. So it looks to be about 3.5 inches by 5 inches. Okay, so on to the books I have for today. So this is the book that I was gifted at Barnes & Noble this morning. It's the Buddhist Mandala pocket coloring book. Now, it will not fit in your pocket, I'm just saying. Maybe your purse. So this one is Inspiring Spiritual Designs for Contemplation, Meditation, and Healing. Discover the life-changing power of mandalas with this beautiful coloring book designed to help release your innate creativity and bring you relaxation and complete peace of mind. It has 26 evocative designs that will work their magic as you color them in. Includes a further 10 basic line templates for you to design your own mandalas, offers a lively and informative introduction, placing mandalas in their historical and cultural context. So this is the book. Starts off, let's go to page 1. So it shows you 4 different these are 4 different mandalas, one by Lama Yesh, one by Nagarjuna, 150 to 250 AD. This is a 6th century to 5th century mandala. Wow, that is beautiful. I like that. This is by Samyutta Nikaya. I have discovered this faith to enlightenment. There arose in me vision, knowledge, penetration, and light. Oh, this one is beautiful. This is by Hui Hai. A mind which dwells upon nothing is the Buddha mind, a mind free from delusion and reality alike. So it starts off with the heart of stillness and kind of gives you spiritual introduction, historical introduction to the mandalas here. And this is the Sri Yantra. This is the mother of all mandalas. And what I especially like about it, so this is a flag mandala. This is mandalas created by Lisa Tenzin Dolma. What I like about this book is that, it tells you, gives you the title of the particular mandala, and then a sort of slight description of it. And then it kind of gives you step-by-step instructions. Like, for instance, first instruction, first contemplate the billowing clouds. Imagine that the clouds are casting, there's a typo there, it says they clouds, but imagine that the clouds are casting a veil over the truth that all seekers are trying to find. Like our thoughts, these obstacles to understanding are unimportant, so long as we do not attain too much importance to them. And then it encourages you to shift your focus to the dreaming flag framed by the clouds. And it sort of takes you step by step through the mandala to show you how to meditate with the mandala. And then at the end, it gives a recommendation for color palette. Like if you might need help deciding what colors that you want to use. So I'll just give you a quick overview of some of the mandalas in here. This one is the Wheel of Truth with the Tai Jitsu in the middle, also known as the Yin Yang symbol. This is the Elemental Fountain mandala. Garuda. Garudas are huge bird-like creatures with human arms that symbolize wisdom in Tibetan Buddhism. The snake denotes anger and hatred and represents one of the hindrances that results in rebirth. Palace of Eternity. Kind of looks like a stupa. This one is Purifying Fire. You can see the flame right in the middle. This mandala loosely suggests the wheel of Buddhism representing the Dharma. However, the fire carries a further connotation. It's the purifying element that symbolically destroys selfish attachments. Diamond Thunderbolt mandala. So there are so many different mandalas in here. Oh, and there's a beautiful Sri Yantra. And what I prefer to do is to make a photocopy, enlarge it, make a photocopy, and then color that. And that way you preserve the coloring book and you can use it over and over and over again. And also use it as a meditation with a loved one. And this is the Avalokiteshvara mandala, who Quan Yin emanates from, Avalokiteshvara. So yeah, these are all the different mandalas. And then at the back of the book, Lisa Tenzin Dolma gives you some templates that you can use to create your own mandalas. And again, you can photocopy these and blow them up, enlarge them, in other words, and fill them in with whatever you would like to. And what I do in my mandala workshops that I give, I encourage people to create their mandalas using symbolism that is meaningful and important to them. So say they want to, for instance, say you want to focus more on really manifesting your own personal authority and trust and belief in yourself. So maybe you might want to use some flames. Flames represent, like power and fierceness and creativity. So you can design your mandala with flames. And here is a directory of Buddhist mandala symbols. So this is a really cute, compact little book that gives more of some traditional mandalas. So you can check that out. And it's very inexpensive. This book was only $8.95. So that's a good one there. And this was one of my first mandala books. Actually, it's, I think, my second. The first one I actually gave to my mother. And this is a 10th anniversary edition Mandalas. And if you were to just get one book, I mentioned before, if you were to get one book on sacred geometry, this would be your book because, as I mentioned in another video, you're given step-by-step instructions and what tools you need in order to create sacred geometry. And then once they give you that, and they go through all the different sacred geometry and show you how to make them. Speaking of which, oh my gosh, let me just share this right quick and then I'll get back to this book. Yesterday, I went to the print shop to get a couple of images photocopied because I did not feel like setting up my printer. And I went to get some images photocopied, and in walks this older woman, and she has some 5x7 images with her. And I'm looking at them, and sure enough, so here she is, this lovely woman. So sure enough, I'm looking at these images, and lo and behold, can you see that? They are geometry, geometric patterns. Of course, I refer to them as sacred geometry. Here's a better image, and you can see. So it turns out, she told me, I don't know how well you can see that. Let me turn that volume down some. It turns out that her 48-year-old daughter, who, by the way, is the same age as me, her 48-year-old daughter is severely autistic. She's like way on that autism spectrum. She's unable to write. She has no fine motor skills, so she's unable to write her own name or even color, but she creates, I call them mandalas. Of course, the woman, the mother, she calls it geometric patterns. Her father was a mathematician and a professor at the local university. But her daughter creates these amazing geometric patterns. Aren't they beautiful? So that's me. I'm like the nosy one. I always can find a reason to speak with whomever. And I had seen this woman around our community many times. So she has very stunning, bright blue eyes. It turns out she is the mother of a client that I hadn't seen in almost 2 years. So it's really sort of auspicious that I run into her, and she is telling me about this geometry, these geometric patterns, and her youngest daughter creates them, and it's just like, wow. And I'm thinking, okay, I can write my name, but I'm going to have to study really hard to figure out how to create these patterns, in the right form using exact measurements. And I just think that's amazing how we are all gifted in so many different ways. And even in a certain way, autism, people are gifted. And, humanity comes in so many different manifestations and dimensions, and we all have something to contribute. So that was a beautiful story. So anyway, back to this book, Mandala, Luminous Symbols for Healing by Judith Cornell, PhD. And this awesome book comes with a CD in the back. And I actually bought this at the local used bookstore. And I think this is one that I probably got as a trade-in. So this really nice book just completely focuses on the healing attribute of mandalas. Because, in Buddhism, mandalas are used as, you focus on them, you meditate on them, and then you're able to manifest whatever it is that you're attempting to manifest, whether it's to be like Quan Yin or the Amida Buddha. So this book, talks about why you should create mandalas, how to use, I believe the woman who wrote this book, she had been dealing with cancer. And she started creating mandalas and meditating on them and focusing on them. Like, for instance, this title is Creating Mandalas to Facilitate Healing. Mandalas can be used to supplement and enhance Western medicine. Because, see, what happens is mandalas are a way of focusing the mind into like a meditative trance. An example is the story of a young woman I'll call Sally. Sally came to me for help in using art as a tool, art as a way to heal. Several days before, she had been diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Surgery was to take place in 10 days. She had great fear and told me that she felt like curling up into fetal position and doing nothing. Over the next 8 days, I instructed Sally to make 3 mandalas. She used the meditation and drawing techniques described in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 for creating and illuminating personal healing symbols. After drawing this series, Sally sharply focused her life force and strengthened her will to live. She also became more centered, peaceful, and grounded, and was able to call on her friends and loved ones for the psychological support she needed to cope with her medical ordeal. When she entered the hospital for surgery, Sally placed her 3 mandalas on the wall above her bed so she could focus on these life-affirming images. 3 weeks later, Sally wrote a radiant letter to say that the doctors who had removed the tumor had done many lab tests and could only find a few cancer cells left. They were perplexed by this, but told her she did not need any more surgery or treatment. So that's really cool. You know, we really do have the power to heal ourselves, and mandalas are a wonderful spiritual technology. So this is chapter 1, mandalas as patterns of sound and light. And she goes into giving, you know, lots of examples of the mandalas, and also gives you some instructions to start creating even just simple mandalas. And then, of course, it goes on to chapter 3, 4, 5, meditation, remembering who you are. Once you've done this meditation and reflected on the experience, you will be ready in the second part of the drawing exercise to produce your unique pattern of light and consciousness. Before you begin, sharpen your white pencils and place the square sheet of paper and your pencils next to you. And then she actually gives you step by step by step by step by step detail. So this is a beautiful book. So this, I would say, if you were looking for one book on how to create your own healing mandalas, this would be the book for you. And she also gives you a meditation for blessing your materials. Gives you a little prayer for that. Meditation on bringing prana, that means energy, healing energy through the hands. Like when people do Chinese or Japanese calligraphy, it's all about focusing your energy or your chi. And let's see, chapter 3, radiant symbols for healing. You have the Sri Yantra there. So this is a beautiful, colorful book. Oh, look at that mandala. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh my gosh, that is just gorgeous. So there you go. So these are the 2 books that I wanted to share with you today. The first, entitled Mandala by Judith Cornell. And the other one is the Buddhist Mandala Pocket Coloring Book. Although I don't know how you're going to fit this into your pocket unless you folded it up like that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. And please remember to thumbs up this video, like it, share it. Please subscribe. Check the description box below. Again, I do plan to be back on later this evening to show some of my copper earrings that I have for sale. I'll give you a sneak preview. These are handmade copper earrings. So these I will These are all handmade copper earrings, hammered, and they have surgical steel hypoallergenics. It's a really cool thing to come across a woman, when I'm walking down the street or at the store and I'm talking to her, and then all of a sudden I'm like looking at her ears and I'm like, wow, those are really nice earrings. Wait a minute, I made those earrings. And someone gave them to the person as a gift. So, I really like what I did with those. So these are just a few of the earrings, and I will bring more out later this evening when I do have a session and do some readings. So anyway, hope you enjoyed these two books, and thanks for being here, and I hope that you are inspired to create your own healing mandalas, as well as to further explore the many facets of Quan Yin, the many facets of mercy and compassion. And welcome, Donna. Thanks for being here. And Donna, thank you so much for your appreciation. Even though the readings that I do are freely given, any love offerings, donations are always appreciated. And so thank you very much, Donna, for thinking of me. And welcome, Oswald. I am about to leave this broadcast. Thank you. I'm about to leave this particular broadcast because I'm done. I stayed here longer than I had planned, but you know me, I like to talk. But I will be back later this evening. What time is it? Where did I put my phone? Oh, here it is. It's 5:30, so 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm hoping to do like either 8:30 or 9 o'clock this evening. A friend of mine is making lamb stew and invited me to come over to hang out for a minute, so I'm going to go do that. I am pretty much like a homebody. I enjoy being at home. And but hey, I'm gonna go over there and hang out and have some good fellowship, as they say. And oh, is that also that's interesting. Oswald says lamb is the perfect food for Rh negative blood types. I'm not a big meat eater. I was actually a vegetarian for probably a good 3.5 years when I was much younger. That was when I was in my quote unquote Hare Krishna days, ISKCON. But it's interesting. At one point, I think I was about 21 and a half, 22. One day I just realized I need to eat meat. I can't do this anymore. It was like something in me that just said I got to stop being a complete vegetarian. But even though I was a vegetarian, I'd never fully been able to go back to just like being completely a carnivore or whatever. And that's probably not even good for you. I've had to make my peace with it. In the end, I feel like that whatever choice you make in your eating, it should be done with thanks and appreciation for whatever life is being taken, because number one, even if you are a strict vegetarian, plants, everything has sentience. Everything has consciousness, whether it's full-blown consciousness, whatever that means, or very minute. Everything vibrates and has life in it. So even that lettuce or string beans, you got to give thanks. And yes, as Oswald mentioned, I think it is much better to try to buy meat from like your local farmers market or smaller farmers. I do not endorse the meat industry. I think there's a lot of negative karma and a lot of harm that's done there. But I do not believe that not eating meat makes you more holy and sacred than people who eat meat, because I've met plenty of people who were vegan or who were vegetarian who were not very compassionate. They had more compassion for animals, or at least they claim to, but very little compassion for their fellow human beings. And so, eat in a way that sustains your body. And if you're being vegan or even vegetarian and you have to eat all these supplements to make up for whatever it is you're missing, then that should tell you something. And I'll tell you right now, I do not endorse veganism. It's not a sustainable life lifestyle. It is not a historically natural. There's no society that was ever vegan. Now, there might have been in cultural or spiritual context that maybe they might fast and not have animal products for a certain amount of time, whether it be milk or cheese or eggs. But there are no ancient societies where they had absolutely no where they have absent. I would never lab grown meat. It's so funny. They actually did I'm a big science fiction fan. Okay. And I used to watch the TV show Eureka. Well, I watch it on Netflix or what's that other one? Amazon Prime. I watch Eureka, and I swear there are a lot of things that I've seen on so-called science fiction shows that later years eventually came out in the public. So I'm just going to leave that there. But anyway, I watched this episode on Eureka, and I think this episode came out in like 2008, this episode, or 2010, one of those two. And it was an episode where one of the scientists had retired from whatever work they were doing and decided to become like a vegan farmer. And they decided to grow chicken meat in a lab, right? They were an organic farmer and they were growing chicken meat to sell. And the woman, I guess there's certain nutrients that the meat needed in order to grow. And I can't remember the name of this nutrient off the top of my head, but it was actually a real nutrient, but she developed it in a synthetic form. So what was happening in town, Eureka is this town, this what would you call it, like this top secret town where the government had recruited like hundreds and hundreds of the top scientific minds, and they lived in this huge town, and all they did was create and invent and all of this. And all of a sudden, all these geniuses, they started becoming dumb, or should I say average. They could no longer calculate their formulations or come up with their theories, and people were just like losing their brain power. And the only person in the town who was not a quote unquote genius was the sheriff. I forget his name. I think it was Andy. He didn't lose his brain power, and the only other guy who was actually a scientist, he's the black guy that was on Terminator, the scientist who created whatever it was that they were trying to go back in time to kill him, to whatever, prevent him from creating. I forget the Terminator story, but that guy, he was also the father on Scandal. Anyway, so he was a vegetarian, so he didn't even eat the chicken. So they were trying to figure out why these people were becoming dumber, and they narrowed it down. They were eating that carpe diem, and they were eating the different chicken on the menu. And so they figured out where the chicken on the menu at carpe diem came from Miss Scientist woman over there who became an organic farmer. And because she was using this synthetic chemical that the body naturally produces when it's alive to actually keep the chicken alive, because the chicken wasn't stimulated and didn't actually have a brain, it was just the meat that was growing. And so because you basically are what you eat. She was basically creating dumb meat. And because the people consumed this meat, they became dumber. I'm just going to leave that there. I think it was season 3, maybe season 2 or season 3. Yes. Was it called? Oh, Oswald said carpe meat and seize the meat. I thought you were giving me the title of that episode. I can't remember the name of that episode, but I'll let you know. But it was deep. And the fact that Eureka, that TV show had that episode out, it was at least 8 to 10 years ago that this episode came out. Now you're seeing fake meat, real meat on the market. I personally wouldn't touch that stuff with a 10-foot pole or 30-foot pole or 100-foot pole. You have no idea. But anyway, I just thought that was really interesting. And, I mean, if you go back, and I'll go ahead, what does it say? Perfecto says original people. If you go, what was I going to say? I just saw a butterfly go across the screen. That was Perfecto. Ali, salam, El, welcome. Lost my train of thought. Oh, I was going to say, to me, sci-fi is more than just science fiction. I mean, if you go back to the early Star Trek, see, the younger generation, they're so used to having all of these gadgets and technology. They were born with it, so they have no idea what it's like for us old heads, people who are 40 and above, or maybe 35. We didn't have iPhones, we didn't have laptops and computers, not the way they are today. Back when I was a teenager, computers were little screens like this. They were apples, and mostly the only people who had computers were super uber nerds that might have built their own computer, people who had money, but if we can kind of stay on topic, that would be cool. Okay, Oswald says, I'm 27 and I'm the youngest age that was mostly socialized before smartphones and social media. Yeah, and even my oldest son is 24. But what was I saying? If you go back to some of the old episodes, the original Star Trek and the Next Generation and even Deep Space Nine, none of the iPhones, iPads, tablets, even on Star Trek, they called them pads. They just called them pads. They looked just like an iPad. And back in the 80s and 90s, when we saw those things, it was like, wow, those are really cool. The guys, they would have a thing kind of was this dimension, like a Kindle, and all the books would be on it, or their reports. We didn't have those things. Now, 20, 30 years later, we have those things. They're commonplace. So you can't tell me that Gene Roddenberry wasn't a prophet of some sort. He was. But I have totally digressed, went off topic. But anyway, I have no idea how I got there. But thank you everyone for being here. Again, I should be back around 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard or 9 o'clock. I am definitely going to be here and doing some sharing. Oswald said, if Buddha was alive today, he'd be a science fiction writer. Yeah, author. Okay, see you tonight. Maybe. Yes, maybe. For me, it's going to be definitely, even if it's a short while. I'm working on being consistent and impeccable with my word. Okay, don't hold me to that. Anyway, I wish you peace and great bliss. Thanks for being here. Much love.